Welcome off the post. I'm Russ Cohen. We've got Anthony Mingione. And how are you?
Pretty good, Russ, considering all things. It's been a fairly exciting, sports week around the board here. I think certainly Philadelphia's perspective, but also Four Nations. We're going to get into that today. Very excited by the start of the tournament. Good things only.
Yeah, and good morning, NBA. And Mike Ogello, how are you?
Well, I have a differing opinion, as always, from Anthony regarding this tournament. But good morning, everyone.
Yeah, I say good morning, NBA, because they probably got smoked in the ratings yesterday for their slam dunk all-star game, whatever you want to
call it a soiree.
Yeah.
The NBA soiree is what it is.
It chose a bad time to air. But anyhow, so let's talk about the USA-Canada game from the Four Nations. And I went back. I interviewed when the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame had its inductions. They had Mike Richter, Ron Wilson, Joel Otto, and Paul Holmgren go in. And so from 1996, that was like a gold standard thing. And we all got that feeling in that game last night. And, of course, the series isn't over, and so anything could still happen. But I went back and looked at it, and Ron Wilson instructed Joel Otto at the start of that 96 game to cross-check his teammate of the Flyers, Eric Lindros, to see what would happen. And then, of course, it got very combustible. So last night was just, for me, Keith Tkachuk was on that team. It's part of the script. I hate to say it that way, but it was part of the script. And the boys came up with it because their dad told them about it. I'm sure that's
and also remembering the fact, again, that they're coming in as the road team. I mean, even though they're listed as were they listed as the home team in the game, or were they not? I know they were listed. Regardless, it's in Canada. So if you're the road team, you want to sort of, I understand that strategy, especially coming in. That you want to kind of establish, what's the old Brian Billick line? You go, if you're going to go in the Lions den, you go in with a spear and you say, where is that? And then finish it with an expletive. That's kind of what Team USA kind of did in this game. I mean, we discussed on Wednesday's show how we felt the U.S. team has a market advantage in certain areas here. This is the first time I can really remember like a tournament here at the pro level where it feels that way. It's been a lot, over Canada. Especially at a position, especially at the position. We talked about goaltender previously, but we also talked about, the center position too, which is almost unheard of over the years for the U.S. to have, period. But they definitely leveraged it in the game. It was, physical, exciting. Mike, what was your take on it?
Well, I mean, I'll say this. I mean, I'll say this a little bit tongue in cheek, but I got the feeling after, and I told Russ this. It's like I was sort of like trying to avoid the anthem BS because I knew
it's unavoidable.
I knew it was going to happen because it's been played up there, and a lot of my friends in the Canadian media were like, oh, it's okay. Honestly, this is a bunch of contrived crap because I really I think this is a much ado about nothing in terms of the hubbub. But there are hurt feelings on one side, and I get that. That's fine, national pride and whatever. But I got the feeling that this is all contrived. And, this is sort of like a WWE event. I almost get the feeling.
There's a little Royal Rumble to it. There's no question. They had more than that feel in this game. Absolutely.
I said, was this the Tkachuks versus Hagel and Bennett, or is this Mr. Wonderful and Rowdy Roddy against Mr. T and the Hulkster? It's like, I got that feeling. And then it's like, you know what? I think, okay, let's go with the grassy knoll theory here, conspiracy theory. And let's say, Vinny Viola, owner of the Florida Panthers, who just happened to be Secretary of the Army under, let's see, Donald Trump. Oh, could he have snuck a little message to his former boss and said, hey, you know what? We need to whip up this Four Nations thing. So we'll say some bad stuff about Canada.
Oh, stop. No.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Here's the one thing I will say. We know the president is a hockey fan. We do. He's been to plenty of. He's been at very least. He's been to Rangers games. Yeah. He obviously, probably compared to a lot of other presidents in this case. I mean, he's been to obviously Ranger games, and not sure about other games in other cities as well. So he obviously has an interest in the sport. Obviously, has a relationship with Wayne Gretzky as well.
And he's a member of the WWE Hall of Fame. So
and he's a member of the WWE. So there is, I will say, the circumstantial evidence, Michael, if we're gonna say anything here,
just like they said, two gunmen were at the grave.
There is definitely some juicy circumstantial evidence in this case, but I think it's just, regardless of the situation, this first game we talked about this before. You and I, we all talked about this, Russ, about how the politics of the situation are you can't really avoid it.
It's unavoidable.
You say those things twice, or multiple times about making Canada a fiefdom to the United States, or fiefdom to the United States. You're going to get your neighbors to the north pretty riled up.
Yeah, no
and then this is just kind of the nature. I said this was going to be the rivalry level of this is going to be higher, a higher level than maybe we've even seen in past tournaments. They're already gung ho. It's the one thing we always know where it's when we talk about Team Canada or Team USA or any of the these players take a great pride in that. Yeah. We hear about it obviously in basketball as well, but my feeling is always with hockey is that
it's more blue collar. Feels like it's a little bit more.
But I think Russ had a really good point when we were talking last night. He had a really good point regarding the makeup of Team Canada, Russ, and the fact that, and I'll let you express it, but the makeup of the team coming into this tournament and certain players who are experienced players, you know what I'm referring to. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this was my thought as I was watching this game, and I'm erasing the first 9 seconds. To me, it didn't matter. But then I knew it was going to be a great hockey game because, again, I already think the series is a big success, and I think that anybody that thought it was going to be like all-star game-ish, they were crazy. It was never going to be that. So I'm watching the game and I'm like, you know what's really hurting Canada here? Unfortunately, guys like Crosby and Marchand and Doughty, who are banged up and old and whatever, and they were just getting steamrolled by the younger U.S. players who were playing a physical game, and Canada couldn't match that. Canada, even Connor McDavid, who had maybe the goal of the year, and again, for people that think that Charlie McAvoy could have made a play on that, try moving laterally on skates. And when McDavid's going 20-something miles an hour through center ice, there is nothing you can do. It's a flash, literally. But again, it was the physicality and the defense that really made Canada pay the price.
And I'll say this. It's like, we know Doughty, we know Crosby. They're great champions. Yeah. They won multiple Stanley Cups. They won multiple gold medals. I mean, they're both coming into this tournament, one coming off a long-term injury who had played like 5 or 6 games, the other one who got hurt the game before. I mean, I understand wanting to bring them, but with the rosters being as compartmentalized as they were, you're risking a lot bringing them to the tournament. And I can't remember who it was, but when they referenced Team Canada's roster and said, I think it was on TSN radio, and they said, well, you look at Team USA and how physical they are and how big they are and how fast they are. And it's like, you really don't have much pushback in terms of Team Canada. It's like there is a place for a Tom Wilson on this roster, because would Charlie McAvoy be laying out, would Rasmus Dahlin and would Charlie McAvoy lay out Connor McDavid if they knew that Tom Wilson was going to be coming around and slamming somebody else right after? I don't know.
And Wilson has 22 goals this year, so it's not like he hasn't earned.
No, you would have had a pathway to put him on a skill pathway to say the guy's got, his plus 20 goal scorer, and he, full well he will play that role that you need him to play. Right. You not the scoring role, but to be that guy who's with everybody else in the lineup will, take. Now again, Russ, you and I have also talked about with Wilson, the fact that I do think he's obviously picking his spots a lot more now. And he's had, there's some, they may need it. Maybe if it wasn't Wilson, then you needed to get a player that was
a physical defenseman.
Well, there's no Pronger anymore, Anthony. There's no, there's no Shea Weber.
Right. And that's a huge thing there. And you don't have those guys who would make you answer the bell in that regard. And it's interesting because as much as we always talk about, you want it to be skill on skill. There's also skill and will.
Correct.
And the physicality does have to play a role because, again, the Americans have decided to make this to really come in this first game and lay the wood down early. Right. And this is something now where Canada's got to think about, okay, if we have a future tournament like this, we're going to need to be ready for the Americans' physicality.
Right. It's not going to be it's not going to be the punch up at Piastani every time. But you need to be dual capable and be able to do the high level of skill. And, Canada was at a disadvantage yesterday because Makar wasn't in the lineup, and he'll be in the lineup if they make it to the final on Thursday. We know that. But I said to Russ, as soon as the first period ended, I said, as well as I, that if they lose this game, they're going to blame Binnington for what they perceived as a soft goal against.
Right, because that's just the easy, low-laying fruit there. But Binnington's had a pretty good series. I don't think that was a great goal. No, I agree. But I don't think that lost them the game either. But
I do feel like at this point now, I mean, this is, again, Binnington is as good as they have.
That's it. That's
what it comes down to and you can lament in recent years the lack of development in Canadian goaltenders in this circumstance. I mean, I do wonder because he was on and I hate to bring this up, but I mean, you do wonder if Hart wasn't out, for the circumstances he's in, would he have figured, because he was on a pretty good run before. He obviously obviously things happened.
Well, I mean, Logan Thompson's healthy, and they never even spoke to him.
Thompson's there, but it's interesting to see about that because, again, with the Canadian staff, they talked about how they just don't. Both coaches, two of the coaches, DeBoer and Cassie, did not want him. Which again, that becomes, and they could turn around and say, well, track record versus Binnington. I mean, it's tough to argue that,
But okay, they have their own personal preferences.
Yeah.
But why? Okay, Samuel Montembeault, after you selected him, his numbers cratered. So but once you selected your
quality team in front, it's also a bit of the team in front of him too.
He's not even on the bench, Mike. Like he's not even a factor. Right. He's up in the press spot.
Yeah.
Him and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen are having a coffee in the
third goalie in this tournament doesn't even scratch the surface, really. I mean, that's the thing. But as far as the deployment, though, and I wasn't the only one who noticed, John Cooper, why did you keep putting Seth Jarvis out there with under 3 minutes to go? And even after that, I understand he's a goal scorer. I get it. But already the game was becoming hugely physical. And Jarvis did get pummeled at one point in the corner. And you've got a bevy of Hall of Fame names here, and you're putting Jarvis out there with him. It didn't make sense.
I mean, I do wonder if some of those names, though, are getting up there in years. And I do wonder
but some of them, but not all of them.
Not all of them, but I do wonder whether or not it's Canada kind of playing I don't want to call it the long game and going full and having those guys, going full out in a championship game versus, but again, you're still taking a massive risk here that you even get there.
You might not get there.
You might not get there, but again, you do wonder in this tournament, and again, the exertion level. I know it's a game and a couple games here, but I do wonder if it's sort of like the NHL general managers are like, well, if you guys are down in this, don't overextend our guys in a meaningless tournament. I do wonder about this.
Control it.
I don't think they can. Once they're there, they're there. But I mean, I'm sure
there's. Can you control the Kachuks? No, clearly you can't.
No.
Well, but again, it's easy to say when Team USA is up and they have leverage to do that.
No, but Matthew got banged up, and he's probably going to still play. He doesn't care.
No, he's going to
play. But of course, it falls into my comfort zone here, and where I'm going to go. U.S. versus Finland. I'm sorry, Canada versus Sweden. The first game, Shea Theodore breaks we think it's a broken wrist with a check along the boards. And it was Adrian Kempe who hit him. He's out for the tournament. And now Matthew Tkachuk, it doesn't seem like it's serious, but he may not play in the game against Sweden on Monday.
No reason.
He shouldn't, right? Because save him up for the gold medal game on Thursday. But this affects Vegas and this affects Florida.
Can't worry about that now, Mike.
No, Russ, I'm sorry. You do worry about that if you're Vegas and Florida. This is the whole point.
You know what? Today, this moment, I don't care. But I want to go back to the tournament in the sense that, like, I get what you're saying, but I don't care.
Mike, the fact of the matter is there's always risk in these things.
Right. Sure.
It's hockey.
Right. Sure. But
hockey's a dangerous sport. Like it is.
My point is, and, it's been proven in history, where, they played the Canada Cup in August or September.
Right.
And, Gilbert Perreault broke his leg in the Canada Cup in 1981. He missed the first, I think, month and a half of the regular season. He came back. It did not destroy the Buffalo Sabres season. Shea Theodore, to go along with Pietrangelo being, not participating in the tournament, you lose your two best defensemen. Vegas's Stanley Cup chances are dramatically impacted.
Players don't want to play in the offseason, so it's a relevant conversation because they did it back then. These players don't want to do it.
They don't want to do it. They don't want to do it now. And the NHL also, I think, believes that this is more beneficial doing this in the midst of the season now because it gets more and more eyeballs on things going down the stretch.
Yeah, people are already fired up knowing that the playoffs are around the corner, and you got this. This is like a primer for it. Hey, I want to talk about a lesser known fourth liner on the U.S., Dylan Larkin.
I love it's like a lesser known people in Detroit are like, oh really?
Who's this guy? Oh, it's our captain. Oh, okay.
I say it that way because it is an embarrassment of riches. But I feel like Dylan Larkin's got to move up in the lineup now. Like he's playing better than a lot of players. He shouldn't be on the fourth line.
No, he shouldn't be. And the funny thing is, if you just look at the box score and the fact that the players who were the most impressive in terms of just their line, Larkin had a goal and an assist +2. You had Matt Boldy with an assist +1. Eichel was +2. But the ones that just jump out at you is Brock Faber and Jacob Slavin were +3.
Yeah.
And both played over 25 minutes.
Yeah,
so
that whole pairing is incredible.
Yeah, no. So It's not Matthews. It's not the Tkachuks. It's not Eichel. But Jake Gensel, who could be the smallest guy in the tournament, Russ, he scores 2 goals in a game against Canada. Cole Caulfield? Oh,
yeah.
There you go. Oh, and by the way,
complain about Caulfield if Gensel's doing the scoring. So that's
if Cole Caulfield was in the tournament, the Montreal Canadiens fans would actually have somebody to cheer about instead of booing Toronto Maple Leafs players.
Okay.
Oh God, I was most passive. Jeez, Mike, I don't think you're more passive aggressive than that.
That's coming from a place, but okay. But back to it, I do think the U.S. could redo some of their lines, and I think they should. I don't think they should sit on their laurels with this one and just be congratulating themselves with this victory because, you got to play in the final, and this next game is meaningless for them. So I don't care really what happens. It was against Sweden. I don't care what happens in that game. As far as Canada goes, let's talk about it because, look, we knew as far as what's happening with Finland and all their injuries, they're putting forth a valiant effort. And they just play the Finnish way. And Ray Ferraro talked about it. And it really is. It doesn't matter the year. It's a constant in the way they play hockey. And so when you need a game, and I've seen this for all the World Junior coverage I've done all over the years, if you need points and you need a game and you have to play Finland, that's not the team you want to play facing elimination because you just this game could be a 1-1 game in overtime. Easy.
Because they're structured. Because Anthony, the Finns are structured. They play. If you have star players like Rantanen, if you have star players like Barkov, if you have the guys like Vakanainen or Jokiharju, they've been playing that system for years. They just plug in and they play that system.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the truth. And again, if you're in Canada's now, do I fully believe Canada is going to defeat the Finns and move on to the final? Yeah, I do believe that. But you don't want to be, as you said, you don't want to be in a tight game with the Finns, because then if you're trying your best to strike, and then you end up they force you into they can force you into bad penalties, because of your desperation. And that could lead, and in a tight game, yeah, there's absolutely the possibility again of that happening. You can't discount it. You can look at the rosters, you can look at everything else with regards to it and say there's no way the Finns have a chance in this. And you may be right, but you better damn well hope, the Finns play to the problem is the Finns will say we play to our system. We can be spoilers here.
Yeah, they're playing with house money. I am going to send a note to Rod Brindamore. Watch the Mikko Rantanen in this tournament and take the shackles off him in Carolina. Because if you don't, getting Mikko Rantanen is not going to help you win a Stanley Cup. If you keep playing the Carolina way, you're going to keep falling short, and you're going to take the offense.
What's the old story? If you should always, I feel like with most coaches, you look at your team and you say, okay, how do we get the system to fit? How do we get the system to fit the players, not the players to fit the system? But hockey has that mentality, and a guy like Brindamore who will say, our team has had success and has maintained success with our system, but again, if you're adding a player of Rantanen's ilk, you have to adapt things.
You do.
To work that into, but again, it comes down to the player buy-in. I do wonder about that a little bit with Rantanen, knowing full well that he is in a free agency year, whether or not, even with Aho being there and the number of Finns that are there, this is where if Carolina's where he ultimately wants to be. There's a lot of stuff that could potentially swirl here with regards to doing that. But I think at the end of the day, if you're Carolina and you're going to make it work, there has to be some give somewhere between player and coach.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's like you've already started even to see that it's gone so badly with Carolina so far with Rantanen that they may consider flipping him at the deadline simply because if they don't think that they have a chance of re-signing him, and they want to recoup something of what they gave up to get him. Is that a possibility? I don't know if that's a possibility.
I would not put anything past Tom Dundon. I would not. I would not put anything past him. It's going to be. I would say that if you're Eric Tulsky, the general manager, you're going to go from people, from hey, this is an amazing coup for Carolina, to people beginning to question things. You're already questioning your track record as a general manager. If I'm Tulsky, I'm probably hoping that that something can happen here. The question is whether or not you have, as a young general manager, and I'm not saying this is not to be critical of Eric Tulsky as a general manager, but this is a unique situation that now goes beyond your whatever what you use to analyze your team, and now you have to go. Now there's a little bit of, again, what is the feel? What is the room like? And is this moving you towards your ultimate goal? And there's going to be two ways you can look at it. If you do flip him, you sometimes have to kind of have the I guess you could say not have the stubbornness to say, hey, we made it. Things look good. We know the track record of the player. It just wasn't working, and we had to do what we needed to do before things went bad. But you have to have sort of the lack of ego to say to recognize that situation if you decide to make that move and try to recoup and just say, hey, we took a swing. Mm-hmm. It came up well short of the fence. We thought it was going to be what we thought was a home run. Instead, if it looks like it's going to be a fly ball that's going to die at the warning track, then you've got to make that decision to see if you can recoup parts. And other teams might say, hey, it didn't work for them, but maybe it'll work for us.
Right. So that's something. Another thing that caught my eye, two things. The play of Adam Fox, who had been under great scrutiny with the Rangers, didn't have any problem in that game last night because there's something going on with the Rangers, as we know. And Mika Zibanejad, who only has 11 goals in the NHL this season, scored a great goal for Sweden. Matter of fact, I've seen him miss on that shot this year with the Rangers. So it just shows you when the mentality changes and you're playing for your country, it does illustrate what's going on with the Rangers, because
it's also a little again, just in the whole just the something different. Like I don't want to equate it to when a person is if you take, it's not a vacation. This is absolutely not a vacation, but I can say that sometimes just a kind of a step away from whatever situation you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Just a change, the old change of scenery here, except you're not being traded in this case. It could help.
This is the only team that Adam Fox is playing on the bottom pairing. Let's just say that. He played on the bottom pairing with Zach Werenski. So it's like, gee.
I mean, Zach Werenski and Adam Fox is your bottom pairing. That's
right. A Norris Trophy winner and a guy who's going to probably be a finalist for the Norris Trophy is on your bottom pairing, and a guy who's won a Norris Trophy isn't even in the tournament in Quinn Hughes. So, that's one thing. I mean,
that's the whole thing. If you're going to mention Cale Makar, you do have to mention Quinn Hughes not being on the U.S. team, because he means the same to that team, and they're managing.
Yeah.
They are managing.
Exactly.
So, I mean, this Canada-Finland game, I really feel like it was funny. I will say this. I want to give props to Chris Pronger, because online he's been engaging a lot of people and pointing out his defensive knowledge. Now, when he did ask who's going to win the game yesterday, he said Canada, and I forget the score, and I put 4-2 U.S., so I was close. Mm-hmm. But what he was saying as far as picking apart things in the game were very poignant, so I think people should look out for him. But we didn't talk about the bad change that led to, I think that was the Larkin goal, right? So the second period long change, like that is still a thing, even in this tournament. And it was a thing for them. And he was like, listen, as a defenseman, you got to, the guy who doesn't leave the ice has to cover the middle of the ice. And that is a key thing. The old players had that drilled. I'm pretty sure the new players do, but maybe not to the same degree.
Or maybe it's just a mistake. Again, it just didn't get over in time. It could be a mistake. Hockey is a game of just find the seam, right? Mm-hmm. If there's a little bit of a gap, find the seam.
And I have to say, and I'll just be, the skunk at the garden party, because
not you, Mike.
Yeah, no, never for me. ABC has got to rethink their broadcasting crew for premier games, because all year on ESPN Plus, whenever it was a national game, it was either Bob Wischusen, who's excellent,
yes,
or sometimes it was Steve Levy and but John Buccigross.
Right.
And now for a signature event on ABC, they put Sean McDonough. And Sean McDonough is not a good hockey announcer. It's made up by Ray Ferraro, who's excellent, and I like Ray, and he provides insightful commentary. Yes. But the in-between periods with PK and Mark Messier, passing around a feather boa or a mink coat or whatever the hell it is, it's like, honestly, it's so weak, it's so bad. And I had to turn to the Sportsnet broadcast because I didn't want to watch this contrived crap. And I'd rather listen to Chris Cuthbert and Craig Simpson, who are really good announcers. And, Sean McDonough ruins the broadcast. And unfortunately, I have to watch the ABC broadcast and the ESPN broadcast because of high def, because we can't get the Canadian broadcasts in high def during the playoffs. But God, find somebody better, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I'm nothing necessarily against Sean McDonough, but I go all the way back to the 1993 World Series with Sean McDonough. I still remember his calls for, the Phillies and the Blue Jays.
Right.
And it just felt like an announcer who just, in my mind, could not, he was over
his skis.
It just doesn't match. I don't want you like being Gus Johnson. I don't need any of that.
Not everybody has to do that.
But I feel like Sean McDonough is literally at the opposite end of that spectrum. That's how I feel.
I would say this.
Whereas I feel with Wischusen in this case is probably, again, about, I think his inflections are on point. He understands when, kind of to raise it and when to bring it down. And it's just, yeah, I mean, again, I'm trying not to be overly critical of broadcasters and what they do.
Yeah, leave that to me.
But I feel like, yeah, McDonough to me is probably like is not in a tournament that the league is promoting. You want to have your best voices on it. You want to have, a Gary Thorne level voice on it. You want to have a Mike Emmerich level voice. And they're just, again, he's there. Wischusen is as good as you, in my mind, as you're going to get, or at least approaching those levels.
Oh, we all know McDonough was their guy. They paid more money for McDonough. We all know.
I get that, but it's at a certain point, it's got to be also like you have to, like all things, organizations need to take a look at their situation and say what's serving the product. And the question also comes down to, how much ABC, it gets to the point of like, do that, if you actually care about this product, if you care about hockey, I think you need to put your best hockey voice there. And
That's
they
fair.
just have it.
I have 2 small points. I just think McDonough's boring. That's it.
No, I'm getting kind of around that and saying it, but it's the truth. It's just he doesn't provide, in my mind, the inflection and the energy level that's necessary for a great hockey broadcast.
And I'll give you an example of something that
maybe it works for baseball a little bit, but like regular season baseball, in my mind.
I'll give you an idea of something he said that I just found like ridiculous, and that was he was like, well, most people believe Connor McDavid's the best player in the world. It's like, raise your hand if you don't think he's the best player in the world. What do you mean most people believe? Just say he's the best player in the world. You can
but they don't want to make the declarative statement because they don't want to get into arguments with people apparently online.
No, because it's an American broadcast. So God forbid you admit that a Canadian is.
I mean, come on. I mean,
we could get
we all could say Wayne Gretzky was the best player in the world, right?
No, Bobby Orr.
So you shouldn't have gone there. You stepped in the land.
I don't give it. Do you think I care with Mike? Do you really think I care?
But my critique of McDonough is the fact that, I don't need to know 5 times that Jack Eichel is from North Charleston, Massachusetts. He's from Boston.
No, it's important to remember that because we don't have Pierre to remind us.
No offense, but I'm kind of happy about that. Last thing, the handoff from the game to the local ABC affiliates was brutal. I don't need to go from this exciting hockey thing that got like 8 minutes of commentary after a great game to there's a woman holding up an umbrella talking about the wintry mix in Quakertown. I don't care. I don't care. Show me at least a half-hour post game and then go to the news. And if you want to show that, I mean, I don't need to see raindrops in HD after a super exciting hocky game. I don't understand.
This is local news. What do you want? I mean, it's
put it off a little bit.
No, they're not going to put it off. What they could do is they probably should. The post game show is going to be on this channel.
Say that. Then say that.
I agree. If it's a quick snap, I agree. Say we're going to continue the broadcast on this channel on ESPN, whatever.
It came off as like it was just awful.
It's too abrupt for you.
We'll do the post game on the Ocho along with volleyball and.
All right.
That's it for Off the Post. We'll catch everybody next time.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.